Good morning. My name is Molly Wecker, and I'm one of the worship interns this year. Our scripture today comes from Matthew 6:19 through 24. Do not store up for yourselves treasures on earth, where moths and vermin destroy and where thieves break in and steal. But store up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where moths and vermin do not destroy and where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasures is, there your heart will be also. The eye is the lamp of the body, and if your eyes are healthy, your whole body will be full of light. But if your eyes are unhealthy, your whole body will be full of darkness. If the light within you is darkness, how great is that darkness? No one can serve two masters. Either you will hate one and love the other, or you will be devoted to one and despise the other. You cannot serve both God and money. Will you please pray with me? Lord, thank you for being with us today. We hope everyone is staying safe. We ask you to speak through Pastor James so we can feel your presence. Thank you for this beautiful day. Amen.
Good morning. I am Pastor James. If I haven't had the chance to meet you, I'm glad you are here as we continue our series looking at the marks of a disciple, the things that make us look like the follower of Jesus that we would like to be. And I was thinking today, before we get to the message of the story, from something that happened years ago. I went with a youth group on a mission trip to Des Moines, and we were just doing some work around Des Moines, and so we were staying at just a local church there. They had a family life center with like a gym and some rooms off to the side, and so we stayed there, and in that gym they had a pop machine. And it wasn't like a Pepsi machine or a Coke machine. It must have been a machine that they owned that they could put in whatever they wanted because it had both Coke and Pepsi in the machine. And so they had a little display with the options. It was Coke, Pepsi, Diet Coke, Mountain Dew, and then some different Gatorades, like red and blue and orange, and then water was an option as well. And so after the first day of being out and about, we come back to that church. I wanted a Coke to drink, and so I went to the machine. I had a little bit of cash on me, put it in, and I pushed the button. B2 was the Coke button. Push it, and out came a Diet Coke. Yeah, yuck. That was terrible. I do not like Diet Coke. I did not want a Diet Coke. That was not the button I pushed. Thankfully, Helen drinks Diet Coke, so I just gave that to her. And I still had a couple bucks left, and so I'm like, well, if Diet Coke's come out of the Coke button, maybe I should just push the Diet Coke button, right? And Coke will come out then, so I'll get a Coke to drink. And so I put in my money. C3 was Diet Coke. Pushed it, and out came Sierra Mist, which wasn't even an option on the display. And so I'm not sure where that came from. But from that point on, one of the older youth and I, we decided we are going to figure out this pop machine. And we are going to learn what drink comes out from which buttons, because even when they did Gatorade, it came a different color than what was on the display. So all weekend long, we were spending our money on drinks we did not want to drink. And at the end of the day, what we figured out is it's completely random. There was no rhyme or reason to anything that came out of that pop machine, and we just spent most of our spending money buying those drinks, trying to figure it out. I thought of that pop machine as I thought about the message for today. We're going to talk about money. And my first thought often when I think about sharing about money in church is that I never quite know what I'm going to get from people in the congregation. I never quite know how people will respond to that. Some people are definitely okay with having talks about money and finances in church. Some people definitely are not okay with that. They'd rather the church not talk about money at all. They think that's not something we should be doing. And there are a few that want us to talk about it more than we do. Probably not, but maybe those people could be out there. There's all kinds of variety of responses I get when I talk about, you want more money? All right. I always wonder what kind of response will I get when we talk about this, but it's an important thing for us to talk about. And I want to share with you kind of 3 of my philosophies that, as I think about teaching on money and how we talk about money together, especially as the church. And the first thing that I always think about, and the question I ask of people when I share a message on money, is how many days a week do you not think about money? How many days in your week, on average, do you not think, do I have enough? Can I afford this? Where's my wallet? Where's my purse? How many days do you not interact with money in a given week? Think about what that average is in your life. I'm going to guess 0, because don't we almost every day think things like, can I afford this? Am I willing to pay for this? I was teasing Helen this last week. We went to a restaurant and she ordered fries, so she got a side of ranch with that, which I would have done too if I had ordered fries, but I didn't that day. But when the bill came, I had to show her how much that ranch cost us, which was 73 cents. It might be worth it. I was showing her because, why would you charge 73 cents for ranch? Why not 75 cents? Doesn't that make more sense to do 75? But it was 73. So I was just pointing out how weird it was that the ranch was 73 cents. But then I also now know that next time I'm at that restaurant, I'm going to be wrestling with, is this side of ranch worth 73 cents? Because I like to call myself frugal, which is the nice way of saying cheap. I really pinch pennies and I wrestle with, can I afford this? Is it worth it, what I will pay for that? And I bet most of us, we think that at least several times a week, if not every single day, with some sort of purchase we're making. Is this worth it? Can I afford this? Another everyday thing I think now is, do I have enough cash? I used to not carry much cash, just use the card or my Apple Pay, but now that place is, I don't know if you call it a discount or they don't give you the extra charge if you use cash. I'm frugal, so I'm going to use cash if it costs less. And so I'm thinking, do I have enough cash? Do I need to go get some more cash? You may think of just kind of those everyday things, but then also sometimes we have bigger questions with our finances. Can I afford it? Meaning, can I make it to the end of the month and cover all my bills? Do I have enough in my retirement for when I'm planning to retire? Do I really have enough that I can give to somebody in need, or do I need it all just to make ends meet for myself and my family? We have those big questions as well. And my thought is, if the church is quiet about something that we have so many questions about, that's something that we interact with every single day, then we're missing the mark. Because our faith is an everyday faith, not just every once in a while. It's a faith that applies to everything in our life. And so we need to talk about money. We need to talk about finances from time to time. It's important for us to do that in the church and then together as followers of Christ as well. So that's my first thing, is I just think we need to talk about it better and be more open about it and have those conversations, because we all interact with money every single day of our lives. Second philosophy with money that I have in the church is, I believe that the church should be very open and transparent with how we spend our funds, but also very confidential when it comes to personal giving to the church. And so what I mean by that is, as you all give to support the church, I believe that you have a right to ask questions of, how are we spending that money? What's going on with our budget? Can I look at the budget, where things are going? And I think we should be very transparent in that and let folks that are part of the church know what our budget is and where we're spending money, and have that conversation. I think that should be available to anybody that wants to see it, ask questions about it, and know those things. We need to be transparent in that. At the same time, we are going to take very seriously confidentiality when it comes to personal giving. That we're never going to share what somebody else gives to the church. That is between you and then just a few folks at the church that will know that information and can help you with it. And so we want you all to know that we take that very seriously and we keep that information private. We do have some counters each week that take our offerings from our joy boxes and they count it. So they'll see parts of names and numbers together as they put that in the records for us. John Terry, our business administrator, he sees it because he keeps all the records and lets you know kind of your giving statements and those things. So he knows. Pastor Helen chooses not to ever see names and numbers together. She's like, I just don't need that information. I don't want that information. And so she never sees those things together. I am actually on the finance and stewardship team, and so I choose to see names and numbers together. I think it's important to get a good picture of things and how things are working here financially. Also, I believe that our giving to the church is a part of our spiritual journey. And one of my main tasks as your pastor is to help you in your spiritual journey. And so that's part of it. So that's information that I should be able to have conversations with you if you want to. I'm not going to hunt you down and talk about it, but if you want to have those conversations and talk or ask questions, I want to be informed to be able to help you. I definitely don't memorize those numbers or anything. They're not in the front of my mind, but in the back, so I just know kind of the situation. And if you want to talk more about that with me, feel free to find me after the service, and we can talk more. My final philosophy that I feel that I'm called to do as your pastor is just to help you relate to money in a godly way. And I think this connects back to our Methodist movement. John Wesley was the founder of the Wesleyan way, of the Methodist movement. And John Wesley had a great saying that I love, and that was earn all you can, save all you can, and give all you can. Those were the things that he encouraged people to do. Earn all you can, save all you can, give all you can. The way I say that for myself is I want to help you be as generous as you want to be. That's what I feel called to as your pastor, to help you be as generous as you want to be. And that means a couple of things. To be generous, first you have to have, to feel that you have enough to share with other folks. So I love to help people with finance planning, get rid of debt, making a plan for giving, those kind of things. I love working with numbers, and so I like to help people do that, to make sure that you're being wise, frugal with your funds, so that you then have the funds to give to what God is calling you to give towards. And then, so calling you to generosity, I want to just help teach you and encourage you to be generous. For me personally, and I don't know if, I'm guessing other people are different than me, but generosity doesn't come natural. Being frugal comes natural to me. Pinching pennies comes natural to me. And so it's been a journey in my faith to learn to let go of things and to be more generous with what God has given to me. And so I'm growing in that, and I want to encourage you all to grow in that generosity as well. And so that's why we want to talk about our finances and be there with each other as we move along that journey. Today specifically, it's about our mark of a disciple. Gifts is one of those marks of us being a disciple, and it says joyfully offer our financial resources. That's something that we believe marks us as followers of Jesus, that we have finances, we have gifts that God has given to us, and we want to joyfully give those to other people. Not even just give, but give them joyfully. That's the challenge, isn't it? That God calls us towards. And so that's what we want to look at and think about and work on today. We have these cards at the welcome centers. As you go out, you can grab the one for this week, which is that gifts card, and take it with you. To look at and think about this giving of our gifts, I wanted us to look at a parable from the Gospel of Matthew. It's a parable that Jesus shares towards the end of the Gospel. I'll remind you that a parable is a story with a point. And so there's a message here that Jesus is trying to communicate. And parables are stories that are not true in the sense that they happened, but it's true in the sense that it happens. It tries to pass on this real truth that we can use in our life, especially as we live out our faith. And so we're going to look at this parable. It's a little bit longer, so hang with me as I read it. I imagine most of you have heard this parable, but we're going to see what Jesus has for us today. So Matthew 25, starting at verse 14. Again, it will be like a man going on a journey who called his servants and entrusted his property to them. To one he gave 5 talents of money, to another 2 talents, and to another 1 talent, each according to his ability. Then he went on his journey. The man who had received the 5 talents went at once and put his money to work and gained 5 more. So also the one with the 2 talents gained 2 more. But the man who had received the 1 talent went off, dug a hole in the ground, and hid his master's money. After a long time, the master of those servants returned and settled accounts with them. The man who had received the 5 talents brought the other 5. Master, he said, you entrusted me with 5 talents. See, I have gained 5 more. His master replied, well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful with a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. Come and share your master's happiness. The man with 2 talents also came. Master, he said, you entrusted me with 2 talents. See, I have gained 2 more. His master replied, well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful with a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. Come and share your master's happiness. Then the man who had received the 1 talent came. Master, he said, I knew that you are a hard man, harvesting where you have not sown and gathering where you have not scattered seed. So I was afraid and went out and hid your talent in the ground. See, here is what belongs to you. His master replied, you wicked, lazy servant. So you knew that I harvest where I had not sown and gather where I have not scattered seed. Well, then you should have put my money on deposit in the bank, deposit with the bankers, so that when I returned, I would have received it back with interest. Take the talent from him and give it to the one who has the 10 talents. For everyone who has will be given more, and he will have an abundance. Whoever does not have, even what he has will be taken from him. And throw that worthless servant outside into the darkness, where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. This is the word of God for us today. So I imagine many of you have heard that parable before, a story that Jesus is sharing to give a message to them. And one of the things we want to be mindful of with parables is that there is this point that it's pointing to, and it's nice when Jesus tells us what the parable means, but when he doesn't, then we have to try and figure it out ourselves. And in this case, Jesus doesn't tell us the meaning of this parable, and so we're going to have to dig into it a little bit. And sometimes I worry about parables like this because we can make it into like that vending machine, that we can try and kind of get out of it whatever we want. That we can kind of make messages and lessons from this that Jesus didn't really intend to do. And I think this one especially we want to be mindful of as we look at it, that I think it does give a message. If you just look at the surface message, it gives you something that is not true. And it's something that I think that other preachers have used before to give us a different message, and that is that if you just put in the work, or if you are generous or you give enough, then God will bless you. Y'all can see that message in there, can't you? The one that had 5 talents, he gave that, put it to work, he got 5 more. The one that had 2, he put that to work, he got 2 more. And someone could use this parable to say, see, if you just are generous with God, then God will bless you in return. We could see that, right? But it almost, if we do that, we kind of make God into this big vending machine in the sky. If I just put enough in, I'll get out what I want to get out. I know what I can get out. And some folks use that this passage to look at that. Yeah, if you put in enough work, you'll just get blessings back. I don't think that's the message that Jesus is trying to communicate. I don't think that's what he wants us to grab onto here. And I don't think that's a message I'm ever going to tell you, is that if you just give to God, he'll bless you back. You'll get so much more. I believe that as we give to God, good things happen and God is blessing us. But I will never say if you give a certain amount, then God will bless you a certain amount in return. Which again is kind of a message you could look at this parable and see. The reason we know that that is not the message that Jesus is trying to share, because we look at the last servant. The last servant hides what he has, the 1 talent, which according to biblical scholar N.T. Wright, he said a talent was a measurement of money, and he said it was what a day laborer would earn after 15 years. So after working 15 years, you'd have made a talent worth of money. And so that's the kind of the dollar amount that it represents. And so a good amount of money is being talked about here. But when that person just buries their talent, what happens to them? They get thrown out, right? They get sent off to darkness. It said weeping and gnashing of teeth, which is kind of a symbol of hell, of being away from God. And so in a sense, that servant lost their salvation. They've been pushed away from God. And so what that tells us is that this is not a message that really is about salvation, because that servant would have lose their salvation because of their works, that they didn't do enough work in order to earn salvation. And we know Jesus doesn't teach us that that's how you earn salvation, right? It is by grace that we are saved. It's God's grace that calls us to him. And so it's not something we can earn by investing enough or giving enough. That doesn't get us into heaven or give us salvation. And so we know that Jesus is not talking about that in this passage. It doesn't match with everything else that Jesus taught. And so there's a bigger picture here that he's working on, a bigger message for us to look into. And so when I am trying to figure out what Jesus is talking about, especially in Matthew's gospel, I tend to remember he's talking to the people of Israel, the people of the Old Testament. And so often in Matthew's gospel, Jesus is trying to communicate to them, you have misunderstood the gospel message. You've misunderstood what God was doing through the people of Israel, and you need to remember who you really are and who you're called to be. And I believe that that's what Jesus is trying to get at in this very passage. Because the people of Israel in the Old Testament, they were called to be God's chosen people. They were to be messengers to other people about who God was. And the nice way, I've heard this in a podcast recently, to think about it, is that they were to be a people of priests. And what the priest is the priest is kind of the middle person to go between God and everybody else, all the other people. You have the priest in the middle. And so the people of Israel were to be the priest to the world. So they were to go to God, hear God's message, and then take that message to the world. What Jesus was finding in his time was so many of the people of Israel, they heard the message from God, but they didn't take it anywhere. They kept it to themselves. They said, we are God's chosen people, and so we better protect ourselves from others. We better keep them away and not share it with them. Because what if they take it and they make it unclean or they mess it up, they don't get it right. And so they began to protect and hold back the message of God instead of sharing it with the people around them. And I believe that is what Jesus is specifically speaking to in this parable, is that last servant was taking in the word of God, the message God had, and just protecting it and keeping it to himself instead of sharing it with others. And Jesus says that's the servant that's not doing what God intended. That's the servant that no longer is fulfilling their calling that I have in them. And so they would be kicked out. The other servants were the ones willing to open up and to share the message of God with other people. And so the specific message that I think that I want us to first think about and get a hold of is Jesus telling us, don't bury your blessings. Don't bury your blessings. Don't hold tightly to the things that God has given to you. Don't hold on to those blessings and think, well, these are just for me. This is to take care of my life, to do the things that I want to do. It's all for me, and so I'm going to hold on to it. I'm going to kind of bury it within myself and just do the things that I want to do with the blessings I have. Now, these blessings, I think they are financial blessings, but I think there are other things too, gifts and those kind of things, talents that we have. But specifically, we're thinking about our finances, that sometimes we hold on too tightly to the finances that we have, and we don't share them the way that God has called us to share them. And so we need to pay attention to be willing to begin to open our hands, to let go of the blessings that God has given to us. And remember that those blessings are not just for us, but they're for us to care for one another. They're for us to share with other people and to offer those blessings to those around us. And I think many of us, we know that, we understand that, but it's always good to be reminded of that and then continue to grow in that generosity of being willing to not just bury everything that we have into ourselves, but to actually hold it out to God and allow God to use that and put that to work. I think as the people of Marion Methodist, I think we have a very generous culture here in our congregation, and I want to thank you for that and also encourage you to keep on growing in that generosity. Keep on growing and not thinking it's all for us or about us, but it's about how we can then change the world and offer what God has given to us here to touch the lives of people around us. I was thinking of one example of a way that you all are living into that is a change that I've seen, and I've seen it in other churches as well. But when I first started in ministry 20 years ago, we would have our budget for our church, and we'd need our funds to do things. And what would happen oftentimes is we wouldn't make our budget until the end of the year, and that's when we had this special thing called Christmas. And Christmas is when all these other people would come, and so we'd take an offering, and that special offering at Christmas would help us to make our budget and meet the needs that we have as a church. And in my first few years, I remember doing that, making sure we had that money to finish off our budget and those kind of things. But as time has gone on, and you all have figured this out too, that maybe that's not the point that we should be lifting up at Christmas, to take care of our needs and the things that we have going on. And what you all have done, and I don't know when you decided to do this, but you all decided years ago that Christmas Eve offering would be given away, that you would not keep it for Marion Methodist. And so what we did this last year, 2024, that went towards the Friendship Fund, which it has for years, I believe. And our Friendship Fund is a fund that we have as a church for those who need a friend, especially when they're struggling with their finances. And so someone can come to our church and they can say, I need gas money to get to appointments or to get to work. And we have this Friendship Fund to offer those resources. Or if they need to go get groceries, or if they have some overdue bills that they need covered, we have this fund to help care for and support people in our community that need a friend and need some assistance in that time. And that fund is funded by our Christmas Eve offering, where we say we want to give all of these gifts away. And before Christmas this coming year, then we empty out that fund. We give a lot of it even to different ministries that serve people in struggling times, because we don't want it to accumulate. We want to put it to work and allow God to use it. And I don't think we had announced our Christmas Eve offering total that we had this year. And so I wanted to say thank you and share with you that we raised this past Christmas over $21,000 for our Friendship Fund. And so I want to say thank you. That is amazing. You can clap if you want. That will, sustain that fund for this year for those that need assistance, and that we can support them and come alongside, saying that as Marion Methodist, we are here to help other people. We're not here to hold tightly to things, to bury it all for ourselves, but we want to be open and share and care those who are around us. And so thank you so much for giving to that, and I'm excited to see what God does with those funds and how it touches the lives of people around us. We are growing in that idea of being willing to let go of things, not just keep it to ourselves. And so that's just one example of how that culture of generosity is growing in us here as a congregation. As we think of being generous, also one of the things I tend to teach people is to plan on being generous. That it's good for us to set in our minds the ways that we are going to be generous. Some people wait to be generous when they feel like it. When they had that emotion that I need to give to this or I need to do that, and we wait for our emotions to tell us that, and that's not bad. The important thing is to be generous, I think, but sometimes our feelings lead us in different directions. The third servant, the reason he buried his talent was because he was afraid. His emotions said to hold on to it for yourself. And so what I encourage people to do is think about how do you want to plan to be generous in the time that's in front of you? Or I usually try to do it in a year in advance. How am I going to be generous this next year? What am I going to give to the church? What am I going to give to other ministries? Because I believe there are other places that God calls you to give and support as well. And so make a plan on how you want to do that. I believe as a church we do pretty well at that as well. We took a survey last October to kind of get an idea of the health of our church and gather information about us. And one of the questions was, do you give regularly a certain amount to the church? And 74% of you said yes. So 74% of you, almost 75%, said, I plan my giving. I give the church a certain amount every week or every month. And I just think that is amazing. That is awesome. I mean, that's 3 out of 4 people make their plan to be generous. And so I'm glad that you do that. Also notice that 42% of you all use electronic giving and give online. So that helps, I think, with being regular and determining that amount. And I just want to encourage us to continue to grow in that as well as we make those plans. As we look at what to give, I tend to encourage people to look at it as a portion of what you have received from God, a portion of your income. Sometimes people just do a dollar amount. I'm going to do 100. I'm going to do 200, something like that. But then every year you got to come back and well, do I go up? Do I go down? If you just do a portion, which is what God encourages us to do, a percentage of your giving, then are you going to make more money? Well, then it should just go up with your percentage. If you're going to make less, then it goes down with your percentage. Just decide what percentage you want to give to God and allow that to determine what is the dollar amount then that you give. And the Bible teaches 10%. That's a tithe. And so that's what I teach. That's what I encourage. That's what I practice. Helen and I kind of start there with our giving and then go from there. And so I just encourage you all, if you don't look at your giving as a percentage, a portion, go and look at it. See what it is compared to what your income is, whether that's for the month or for the year, however you want to figure that. But just see where you are with that percentage. Last I knew, statistics was Methodists on average give 2.5% of their income is where they are. So that's a good target if you want to be average. I know most of you don't want to be average, right? You all want to be above average. So 2.5 and then start working up from there. To jump straight to 10%, I know is very difficult, very scary. And so I don't recommend that usually. I recommend make a plan. Say maybe next year we're going to go up 0.5%, and then the year after that 0.5%, and just keep doing that until you get to the 10%. It's a much better plan, and that can help you to move in the right direction. But look at that portion. What do you give, and then how do you do that? And then just to share also just kind of what an average giver at Marion Methodist looks, I asked John Terry to run the numbers for us, and so in 2024, we had 440 families give in support of our general budget. Okay, our operating budget. So we had 440 families. That's individuals, that's couples, that's families, just 444 folks that were giving to it. So I asked them what was the average gift, and just divided by all the givers, and the average was $2,400 in a year. So the average giver at Marion gives $2,400 a year. Then I also asked him for the median, just because I like numbers, as you can tell. And so the median would be that middle family, which would probably be family number 220. and they gave $1,215. So that means half of our folks give less than that, and half of our folks give more than that. That's what that median number is. So an average giver in Marion Methodist gives between $100 to $200 a month. That's what the average person looks like. Is that good or bad? I don't know. We don't need to decide that. That's just who we are. That's right. That's who we are as givers here at Marion Methodist. And I like all those numbers and just wanted to share them with you all so you can just see what's going on in the hearts and minds of the people that are around us as we give together to support the ministries that God has for us here. And so as we think of those portions, those plans, those things, again, I'll point us to the parable and remember that we are not called to give so that we can get in return. We don't give what God has given to us to make the investment, to hope that we get something back from it, that good things come our way because we've done that. I believe when we give to God, good things do happen, but not because we have given. It's because God is generous. And that's the other lesson that I learned in the parable, that not to bury our blessings, but the other thing is that our gifts are given by a generous God. What I noticed for all three of these servants is that they had nothing before the master gave them their talents. And the master gave all three of them the talents that they had. So everything was a gift from God. And I believe that is the mindset that we need to grow in if we are going to be generous in this life. To remember that it is this generous God that has given me everything that I have. All of it was His. But He's offered me some. He's offered me a portion. And so I can now follow His example, and I can offer a portion that He asked for back to Him, for His work, for the things of the kingdom of God that He wants to do. I'm going to let go and not hold on to it. I'm not going to bury it. I'm not going to make sure I have enough, but I'm going to say, God, how can I give you part of what I have? You can use that then to bless other people. We have a generous God that has given us so much. We want to be open and offer to Him back the gifts that He first gave to us. And one of the things I believe that was such a generous gift that God gave to us is a church family. And I never want this giving to our church family to become a burden on anyone or a struggle. I definitely encourage you, take care of your family, take care of your needs and those things before you give to the church because we want to take care of you. We are in this together. And so if you're struggling, if things are difficult, then let us know how we can help. Let us help you make a plan and work through things together. We have Financial Peace University, which is a small group that teaches you how to budget and to use your finances in wise ways. I enjoy doing that. I know we have other folks in the church that would love to give you encouragement and advice in making those plans as well. We don't want you to struggle financially. We are in this together, and we can help and support and encourage each other because God has given us blessings together that we then bring to one another so that He might be lifted up and glorified. And so it all comes together when we recognize how generous God is and how generous He calls us to be with one another. And that generosity leads us to do those things that care for one another, lift each other up, and journey with one another. And so I see in this parable just that reminder to not bury the things that come your way. Don't hold tightly to it. Don't think it's just for you and for your needs and what you want. But think this is a gift from God, a blessing God has given to me. How might I offer this for God's blessing to continue? For God's blessing to reach somebody else that's struggling, that's having difficulty? How can we care for one another? Because that's the whole purpose is for all of us to move forward together. I believe that's the work that God is doing when He calls us to joyfully give of our financial resources and to show that we have that mark of a disciple on our lives. Let us pray. Gracious God, I thank You that You are generous. Lord, that You don't look at us and expect us to work hard to earn salvation. Lord, it is a gift given by Your grace. But You do call us, Lord, to be generous because You are generous. And so help us to grow, to have a mindset that doesn't bury, that doesn't live in fear, that doesn't hold back, making sure that we have enough. But may we trust You, that You will give us enough, You will provide, and that we can offer to You the talents, the gifts that You have given to us to be used for Your ministry and for Your glory. Lord, help us to grow in being generous in all that we do to show You to others. Pray this in Jesus' holy and precious name. Amen.